Hello everyone, I'm Winston, or you can call me Song Jianzhang, but I think the pronunciation might be difficult for you, so just call me Winston. So yeah, I'm going to present the status of Sinitic languages and Formosan languages in MediaWiki today here in the AAEOM building room TR 511. Yeah. So this is our community, but the discussion is mainly in Mandarin, so you might not able to understand it, but welcome to join us. The MediaWiki Sinitic languages and Mandarin language community, and feel free to ask in like English, Mandarin, whatever, and we'll try best to answer that. Yeah. Okay. So first, let's start with an introduction about me, and so like starting from 2019, November 15, I'm the defendant. ZH Community Central Crew. ZH is the language code for Chinese languages, yeah. And starting March 10th, 2020, I'm become a MediaWiki developer. And then I become the Fandom International Volunteering Team, the ZH group member. And starting from September 30, 2020 to April 27, 2023. And the reason of I'm not longer there is because Fandom dismissed the whole international volunteering team. Yeah, so sadly, the international support is significantly become lower. And from 2023, I'm become a MediaWiki code reviewer with this code review +2 user right. And then I become the community lead of the MediaWiki Sinitic languages and Mandarin language community, starting from 2023. This is the fabricator task for giving me the, damn it. This is the fabricator task about giving me the code review +2 permission right, user right here. And it is nominated by Lego KTM, yeah. And as you can see, close result, so I got the right. And then become the reviewer. So let's come with the abstract in a nutshell, yeah. So there are currently 26 Sinitic languages open for translation, available for translation in MediaWiki, and currently 20 of them were exported and be available for production use. There are 8 Formosan languages open for translation in MediaWiki, and 6 of them were exported and available for production use. And currently, and as of March this year, the system messages in MediaWiki core are 4,771, including the split translations file. And we're recently splitting the main translation file, so it won't be that too large. You know, they are like thousands, millions of messages in a single file, and that's too huge for a single translation group. And yeah, so we're splitting them. I also participate this split. And so in the main translation file, we have 4,029 at the moment. And number of the messages in the most important messages are 588. And it's not very much in the main translation file, but they're mostly used. And there is a proposal about splitting the most important message file into a separate translation file. And the current export threshold is 13%, so you have to translate at least 524 system messages to make the language become available in the MediaWiki core. And the translation progress of most of the Sinitic language and Formosan language were not ideal, mostly because of the low language users, and I mean the written language users, not the spoken language users. And only 3 Sinitic languages and 1 Formosan language over the have the translation over 50% complete. And most of the Sinitic language that need to be split based on writing systems were split, including 5 languages. The Sinitic language and Formosan language that need to be were mostly due to lack of separated ISO 639 codes. Because we need to have the language code to be registered at ISO 639 first before we can use it in the BCP 47 standard language subtag. And so we're going to introduce some background context. So what is MediaWiki? MediaWiki is the software that powers Wikipedia, Wikidata, OpenStreetMap Wiki, and more wiki websites. The software used by several wiki hosting services. We call this hosting service Wikiforms, including the Wikimedia projects, Fandom Wikis, Mirahis, and Wiki.gg. This is the previous logo of MediaWiki since 2003, but it got replaced in 2020. And it is proposed to replace and got the community consensus to use this one, and so it is the current MediaWiki logo. And then what is a system message in the MediaWiki? System messages can be used to customize the behavior of MediaWiki and its appearance for each language and locale. The system message were existed in several formats, including plain text, wiki text, and like there are special formats like the sidebar or like CSS, JavaScript, and JSON. This is the MediaWiki.org website, and as you can see on the left part, there is the sidebar, and at the top there is like main page discussion. These are all interface strings, and we call them system messages. And about how do we customize them? So as you can see, this is the sidebar, and we use a special format to customize the sidebar right here. Like if you see there is a string at the front, like NW manual URL, it actually points to the system message with the key NW manual URL, and it contains the URL pointing or the internal page name pointing to that target. So the target, and then there is a pipe character here. And after that, there is another string like NW manual. It means the label to display for the links. So for example, block text it contains the text block in the English system message. So you can see why you can find the reason why you can't find the exact syntax here, because they use system messages to show the different strings here. So like, because the system messages are different in each language, so like recent changes will be translated right here by using this system message. And then what is TranslateWiki.net? TranslateWiki.net is the localization platform for open source projects, including Berkeley, MediaWiki, OpenStreetMap, Wikimedia mobile apps, and more. So this is the main page of TranslateWiki.net. You can see the register form right there in the main page, which is actually quite hard to find when you are not on the main page. Yeah, because this is the only location you can register right now on the TranslateWiki.net. And after you register, you need to wait for your account to be approved, and you have to, like in the Translate Sandbox, publish some translation sandbox translations. Yeah, so viewer will review your translation to ensure that you're not a vendor or a spam account, and then your account will get approved. So what is Semantic languages? What are Semantic languages? Semantic languages are several languages that mainly use the Han script, including the simplified Han and traditional Han writing systems. And some of them also use Latin script writing systems. And like for Hokkien, it actually uses a special Han Latin multi-script writing system, including simplified Han and traditional Han. So the Semantic language contains several languages, including Mandarin, Cantonese, Hokkien, Fuzhou, literary Chinese, and more. And the current problem for now is that the simplified Han writing system does not have corresponding BCP47 script subtype, so we cannot properly using a unique and standard identifier for it. And this page is actually outdated because we got the traditional Han Latin script writing system strict subtype approved recently. And then what is Formosan languages? Formosan languages is a group of languages used by indigenous people in Taiwan, yeah. And they're actually all of them use Latin script writing systems. There are 5 language groups identified in 1944. And in 2005, there are 16 regulated language groups. And the reason we call them regulated language groups is because actually not all of them are interdelectable due to some reasons. The different terms used by each village, yeah. And we did talk about we did mention BCP47 language tag before, and what is BCP47 language tag? A BCP47 language tag consists of language, script, region, variant, and if you want to use private subtags, there are X extension. So you apply a -X- and you can use private subtags, but these are not, and when you use private subtags, that means your subtag is actually only something defined by yourself and not something universal. So as you can see on the example format, language use all lowercase, script use the first letter uppercase, and region use all all uppercase, variant and private use all lowercase. Each part is a subtag. For example, when you're using a language tab of English language, the language subtag will be EN. The script subtag is LATN, but because there is a suppressed script field there, so we actually use EN instead of EN-LATN. And for example, if you want to specify the English language of Great Britain, you use EN-GB. The GB is then become the region subtag of the language tag. If you want to be more specific, like I want to specify this is the Oxford English Dictionary spelling, you can apply the variant subtag, for example, the Oxendic. Yeah, so like that. So when, in what condition there will be a suppressed script in the registry? So for example, English mainly only use Latin script. So we registered with a suppressed script LATN there to specify we use EN instead of EN-LATN. However, if you're using ZH, which means the Chinese languages, ZH does not have the suppressed script and it does not only use one script. So it is recommended that we should use ZH-HAN, which means the simplified Han script, and ZH-HAN, which means the traditional Han script instead of ZH. So based on this context and a better fallback, we use ZH-HANT-TW instead of ZH-TW, so it can properly fall back to HANT instead of simply ZH, which in more modern context texts might fall back to the simplified one. And as you can see on the register, there is a macro language field. But what does the macro language means? It actually means the language subtag refers to multiple languages. And you should use a more specific language subtag if possible. But why we're still using ZH? There are several historical and policy reasons for using it, including some like technical considerations and depths. Yeah. So like if you see there's a language tag, right, ZH-HANS-CN, it is actually referring to CMN-HANS-CN because in this context we actually want to refer to Mandarin instead of that any possible of Chinese languages. And so the same apply for -TW. It is actually CMN. But for Hong Kong ones, ZH-HK, using ZH is actually a correct choice because there's a biliteracy and trilingualism policy, which means that well, no matter you're speaking Mandarin or Cantonese, they're all written in a written form that is more close to Mandarin, but like for the name translations, they're actually pronounced like Cantonese. So the ZH-HK actually means the Chinese, including both Cantonese and Mandarin. Yeah. But there are some considerations like BCP 47 language that is not equal to the ISO 639 language codes. They might not be the same. And so there are actually many places that making the lab around that they say this is the ISO 639 they want to use, but actually they're using BCP 47. But as we mentioned before, you want to have a new BCP 47 language. Before you want to request for a new BCP 47 language subtag, you have to make them exist in ISO 639 first. So most of them were identical. But in some special cases, for example, the Serbo-Croatian, SH is deprecated in ISO 639 standard and use the ISO 639-3 HBS instead. And the SH code is being stated to be deprecated in ISO. But however, because BCP 47 wants to maintain a compatibility in most cases and as possible, whenever possible. So SH is still being used in BCP 47 and HBS is never registered in BCP 47 because we don't want a same thing to be using different identifiers twice or multiple times. And MediaWiki should use BCP 47 and actually mostly use BCP 47 instead of ISO 639. So you might see there are some wrongly labeled cases on the incubator, like this might rate ISO 639, but actually it means the BCP 47. Yeah. So there are some exceptions, including deprecating and non-standard language tags. For example, ZH-UF, it should be YUE, simply YUE, instead of ZH-YUE instead. And ZH-classical. But these codes are actually like non-standard and deprecated in BCP 47. And so then we're going to talk about language statistics. And so first we come with the syntactic languages part. As we mentioned, there are several languages open for translation, including Mindong, Jing, Puxian, Gan, Hakka, Xiang, Literary Chinese, Hokkien, Wu, Cantonese, and Mandarin, or Chinese on Hong Kong context. However, not all of them were exported. And as you can see in this graph, most of them have a simplified form and a traditional Han form. And some of them have specific cases like Latin for Mindong, Puxian, Hakka, and Minnan. Yeah, Hokkien. So these are the supported languages. As you can see, none of them are exported. Like for Hokkien, the simplified one haven't been exported. And this one is outdated too because we have, no, this one isn't outdated, and I'll take the part later. So as of March 9th, this is the language statistics of all of them in MediaWiki core. And as you can see, not ideal. Only Mandarin have 100%, and HK as a supplementary will be always exported and should not be always translated if these are identical to ZH-HAND. So you can see the percentage is low, but it is actually what we expected to have because we only translate the part that is distinguished. that is different. Yeah, and the only another one is you can see the Yue traditional Han, Cantonese one has 74%, and others are actually not ideal. And as we mentioned, most of the Sinitic language that need to be split based on writing systems were split, including like we split the Puxian into simplified Han, traditional Han, and Latin script. Wu into simplified and traditional Han. Cantonese into simplified and traditional Han, and also Hokkien. Because Hokkien use different writing systems under Latin script, so we have to split them into two. So you can see there are Bewedi and Dailo, two different variants of text here. Mindong, we split it into simplified, traditional, and Latin. However, there are some cases that we want to split them, but they cannot be handled because they didn't have a separated ISO 639 language code. For example, Minnan. Minnan are several languages being grouped, but however, they just only register an NAN subtag. And the split was proposed in request 2021-045, but most of them were rejected in 2024 after 3 years, quite a long time. So for example, Hokkien, there are Hokkien under Minnan, including the mixed one. The mixed one means they are Chaozhou and Zhangzhou mixed, and they are Chaozhou specific, Zhangzhou specific, and Tong'an, and more like that. And there are also Deoshua, and the case we want to split this is because Hokkien and Deoshua are not mutually intelligible, but we don't have a specific code for them, so it is being blocked for several years. Then we're talking about Formosan languages. The Formosan language open for translation in MediaWiki has 8 languages, including Amis, Bunong, Rukai, Taiwan, Sakizaya, Atayal, Turku, and Saishat. The translation status, of course, most of them are not ideal due to the low language users, especially the written language users. You can see the most ideal translation percentage here is the Sakizaya, have 70%. However, and Amis has a high user group, high user base, but it doesn't have very high translation percentage. Yeah. So as you can see, we have 8 here, but we only got 6 of them exported. And we mentioned that several language groups actually have different, like there are different use of terms, vocabularies in different villages. So these probably should be split because they are not actually really some kind of intelligible. Mutual, I forgot the term. And for example, this one is also another case, PZH, Pazai, Paze Kanabu, yeah, Kahabu, yeah, Autosidic. There are Turku, Doda, and Dikdaya. And then we're going to talk about how did we split different writing systems. Some languages have different writing systems in the same language tag on translatedwiki.net, but picture that. You're using English interface, but you see like why there are Latin script in the sidebar, but I have other instructions part, user interface in the Cyrillic script. Imagine that, can you read that? Of course not, and so we need to split them to have a separated in different script. Like, as we mentioned, we split this, but it comes to a difficulty. Some kind of language, like that, for example, Hokkien, we have Bewedi and Dailo, but we doesn't have proper way to distinguish them. Like we cannot translate them all under non-Latin because one language should only have and only can have one translation. So in order to support both of these writing systems, orthographies, so we need to propose them. So first of all, we have to join the IETF languages mailing list. And then we send the request form about I like to register the variant subtag. And so you can see here, sent by me on 2024 February. So here are proposed records and registration form for the request Hokkien variants, and you know there are many details like you need to make a line ref, new line when it exceeds the maximum line requirement. And I didn't find any documentation on the website about the form. There's only a template. It didn't contain any detail about the line ref, so there are many kinds of modification about the proposal. And we were talking about like, should we use the all vernacular romanization or the church romanization under the same subtag, or we should use different for them? After the discussion on the mailing list, we decided to use a single for each one for different subtags if we want to register the BYD vernacular romanization system in different languages. So as you can see here, don't use the subtag for Hakka if you want to refer to the Hakka vernacular romanization system. So the outcome is we have these two records here and added on 2024 March. And there's some detailed description added on prefix, and the type is a variant. Then we're talking about, do you want to picture this? Yeah. You can find on the IANA language subtag registry. These are the records there. And then we're talking about how to add language to MediaWiki. So first, you need to provide the BCP for some language subtag for the language. So that is also the main reason why we are being blocked for several splits and registers, because they don't have a corresponding subtag. And then after we provide it, and we need to enable it on the translation, on translate.wiki.net configuration on Garrett. So it is actually something technical. So you might wait for Dan or do it on yourself. Either way, yeah, either way. So for me, I usually just submit my patches there instead of waiting them, because the language community actually don't have that much people to handle this. So you can just do it by yourself and speed up the process. Yeah. And then after enable it on translate.wiki.net, you need to translate the MediaWiki core main translation file to the export DS host of MediaWiki core 524 system messages, and still a big amount. Yeah, 14%. And you need to decide the language autonym, the local language name. What is the autonym? It means the language autonym means the language name in that language. So how does that language call its language? Yeah, so the language name. Like we say 中文 or 华语 in 中文, 华语 in Chinese, in Mandarin, yeah, like that. Just like we say, oh, we're speaking English and we're speaking in English, yeah, like that. And we need to decide the language fallback chain, like when the translation is not available in some part of the strings, which ones should we use instead? And all languages are implicitly fallback to English because we don't want to show the message key there. So like, for example, in like Mandarin traditional Han script, if we don't have a specific translation, it will first fall back to the simplified one. And then it will try, because it is the end of the fallback chain, it will just fall back to English whenever possible, yeah. And we need to provide the namespace name translations datetime formats. For example, like, how would you call like help, project, or like user in your language? And there is actually a special support for gender namespaces. For example, in German, they use different vocabulary for the male user and the female user. So they have a support for different gender for the namespace. So it will detect, like, for example, it's a male user, it will make the display in the male user namespace name, gender analyze. Yeah. And so this is the part you translate. And this is one you register. After you register, you're able to see the log after you log in. How many translations per month, how many reviews per month. Yeah. It also contains a rank, like in your main language. Which rank? Like, are you the top translators there or the second? Yeah, like that. But however, English is the source language, so you cannot translate into English, of course. And if you were able to, and it will be the user interface will be like that. Yeah. You can see there's plural support in a single string, so you don't need to like have categories in a different string. This is specifically useful for like Mandarin because we just simply use plural 分类. We don't need to 分类 as. Yeah, we don't have that. So when you only have one, you just specify one. You don't need to duplicate it. If you duplicate it, the editor will warn you. Don't duplicate it, you're doing something that we are not expected to see. Yeah, so you just put one here. So here comes the final conclusion. We have introduced the MediaWiki software, TranslateWiki.net, and BCP for its 7 language tags. And we have different types of subtitle there. And we have introduced talk about the language status of synthetic languages and Formosan languages, and the history of splitting mixed writing system translations. It's actually a huge amount of time to do that because I had to manually examine each translation, whether this is a traditional Han translation or this is a simplified Han translation or it is a parody or title translation. I had to move them one by one on my browser. Yeah, so this actually cost a lot of time for me. And it doesn't happen for only one language. It happens for, as we mentioned before, 3 languages to do this. So it is very time-consuming task because we need to examine it. And we cannot say, like, can you help me if he doesn't know the difference between simplified Han and traditional Han. So only so I did this. And about how to add new languages to MediaWiki software and how to use TranslateWikiNet to translate MediaWiki software. Any questions? Raise your hand or, yeah, please.
I want to ask about the 13% threshold to add a new translation, to add a new language. You mentioned that
Yeah.
they added 13%
Yeah.
of the story.
Yeah.
I would like to know if you know what's the how it came to be decided that it should be 13%. I think it looks quite low, but then there is a trade-off between showing.
And yeah, there is a trade-off.
So I would like to know how come you decided 13%.
And it is actually higher if I remember correctly, like 18% or 15% before. So they actually lower the export threshold. But if I remember correctly, these are decided by the language committee. Yeah, and not by us because these are not decided by the community. They are decided by the committee. Yeah. Yeah, so the Wikimedia Language Committee. Yeah, so if I remember correctly, yeah, they actually lower this, or some language might never be able to explore it. Yeah. So as you can see, it is 524 here, but actually become lower because we have some messages split to another translation file. Yeah. So during the split of translation files, this become lower and lower and lower. Yeah. So we don't have this kind of burden. Yeah, please.
Follow-up question to the same topic.
Yeah.
Is it 520 for specific messages, or is it just any kind of system messages that it has to be written?
You mean the export dashboard? As I said here, you need to translate the main translation file. So if you see a translation group says, wait a second. For example, if you enter the translation user interface, you can see this is currently the correct group you're looking for. It says MediaWiki core, and this is the main translation file. If you see this, there's some separated split as MediaWiki core -exif tags, and you're translating the wrong one, or like the preferences, the datetime formats. These are already being flipped. They are not considered in the export as well. Yeah. Although these messages will be exported anyway, but they are, as long as they are not the main translation file, they will not be added to the MediaWiki core. Yeah. Any translations? Okay, so that's all. And thanks.